good students. I'm called Geridens Victor. I'm going to be your tutor for Principles of Procurement and Logistics Management. So in this course, when we talk of Principles of Procurement and Logistics Management, we're basically looking at how procurement has to be done and how logistics has to be done. What is put down to see that there is success in all these activities. So through this, in our objectives, we expect you by the end of the lecture to be able to understand the basic principles of procurement and the logistics management. To go straight away to our lecture, I will begin by defining what is procurement. When we talk of procurement, we are talking of the process of acquiring goods, services, and works from external sources. At this point, when we are procuring, we basically procure three things. We acquire three things, that is goods. Those are tangible things or tangible things you can see with your eyes or you can touch. Then services. These are services that are provided to us by an outsider or an external service provider. Then works, which includes construction, rehabilitation works, and all that. So in other words, we say procurement is a process, and through our lecture, we shall see what it takes for the procurement to be successful, those steps that are involved in the procurement. Then also, the next definition down here, it says, is the process of acquiring goods or services, which may include multiple steps, such as identifying needs, researching suppliers, evaluating the proposal, negotiating contracts, managing relationships with suppliers. All this, when you put them together, then the procurement process becomes successful. We shall look at all that one by one as we are moving on in our lecture. Another definition is here. It says that these are the functions that focus on obtaining the right goods or services at the right price and quality, while also managing risks and ensuring compliance with legal, ethical standards, which is also a very clear definition. Mostly in the procurement process, when we are procuring, we look at procuring the right goods at the right price and the right quality. Every procurement process ensures that the user must get what he expects of the price that is offered for the product that is needed. Then, in other words, in most cases, many people, they confuse purchasing and procuring. Purchasing is just a concept or a work or an activity that is within the procurement process. In other words, I'm saying procurement is wider, while purchasing is just an activity that is within the procurement process. As we can see here, a definition of purchasing says it refers to buying of goods or services from a supplier, which is a direct activity, in other words. Also purchasing is buying for resale. There's another definition which can also be put in such a manner. So for you to differentiate, you would say purchasing is just an activity or a buying process that is of a small size compared to procurement, which has a variety of activities involved in the process. Then when we talk of categories of procurement, already I have mentioned this before. I said when we are procuring, we procure basically three categories of activities or of items or of services. The first one, we say we are procuring goods. This involves acquisition of physical, such as raw material, finished products, and equipment. Things you can touch and things you can see. That category, we put it under goods procurement. Then the next category is service procurement, which involves procuring of services or consultancy, services that include consultancy, ICT, support, legal services, and marketing services. You procure someone to provide these services because these are things you cannot touch or even see. Then works, which include construction, infrastructure projects such as roads and building and or utilities. So all these you put them under works procurement. Then we have the service procurement, then we have goods procurement. So that means in summary, we procure three categories of requirements in an organization. Next, we go to why do we procure? The objectives of procurement, in other words. Why do we have to procure? To avail relevant services which are needed by the user department. The user department is the final user, the person who needs it. When we go to an organization or a government agency, let's say Ministry of Health, it can procure medicine, but there are people who are going to use, they are sick people who are going to use this medicine, and those are the user department, or that is the user department. When it's a school construction, the user department are the students who are going to study there. So in other words, we procure to avail the services to the user department to ensure appropriate use of funds without frauds or corruption. That's why we have the procurement law. So the first objective of procurement is to ensure that there is no fraud or there is no corruption. Acquire goods or services at the best possible price while maintaining quality standards. This is also a very important objective of procurement. Should be at the best price. That's why we have negotiation process in procurement, so that we get the best product at the best price. That's what we call value for money. To ensure accountability, of course, procurement has to be done based on the budget that is set, and procurement is evaluated. Then the budget has to control or has to be checked to monitor the procurement process, and there is accountability for every money that is used to procure. To ensure value for money, what I have mentioned, every item or every works, goods or service that is procured must be worth the money that is spent. That is one objective of why we have procurement, or why we should conduct procurement, to ensure that goods or services acquired meet the organization's quality standard and specification. Before procurement is done, at this point, before procurement is done, the user department has to provide what they need. They provide the specification of, if it is a facility, maybe a school, they have to be specifications for it. If it's a vehicle that has to be procured, there have to be specification for it. We give an example of an ambulance to be procured for a hospital. There are specific specifications. So procurement ensures that what is bought must be according to the specifications that are required. Lastly, under objectives, identifying and managing risks associated with acquisition of goods and services. Every procurement process has risks involved. There are many risks. These risks can be outside from the external environment that are beyond the control of an organization. So these risks must be identified. When they are identified, then from there, the procurement will see how this risk can be minimized so that the procurement process can be successful. That is an objective of the procurement process, to ensure that the procurement process goes through. So basically, the procurement process has objectives, or the procurement has objectives which are mentioned there as I have gone through. So you can also go through and understand them better. A procurement department or a procurement has functions, or the department has functions that it has to do. And what are these functions? They are mentioned here. Let's look through them. The first function here can be identification of needs. The first activity I said, procurement is the steps, or procurement involves activities that are in an ascending order. The first one is need identification. We identify what is needed. So when these needs are identified, mostly these needs come from the user department. So when these needs are identified, then we shall identify the supplier that we need to provide the requirements that we want. If it is goods, if it is services, if it is works that we want. So who are these suppliers that have to provide, which is the second step. So when we find out the suppliers, then we do the supplier selection, which is a process. In the procurement process, when we talk of supplier selection, there are many activities that have to take place. We know where are the suppliers, we invite them. We could use RFQs, or requests for quotations. We could use requests for proposals. We could use invitation to tender. Then these suppliers will give in their tenders. Then we evaluate those tenders and we see, and before we evaluate those tenders, we see what are needed for a successful supplier to go through. Then we select the one that is providing what exactly we want. Then after that, when we select, there is negotiation which comes after. Sometimes the procurement has to bring the successful supplier on a round table where there is a negotiation. Then we find which best price or what offer does he has that is worth the money we are giving him, which is value for money. We looked around that before. Then the contracting, which involves contract signing, which is the acceptance of the contract. When the contract is signed, then the order is placed. We give an order, the procuring department will give an order, then the order has to be fulfilled by the supplier, which also includes the order management at the same time. It is placed, then it is managed. Management means it is controlled, it is planned, and you monitor to see that the implementation of the order is accordingly. Then we have also inventory management. When the order is placed and the inventory is delivered, remember before inventory is delivered, we have what we call the supplier has to send for us that the goods are on the way. Then that is the good delivery note that comes with the goods. Then we receive them, then we manage the inventory. This inventory has to be packed very well in the warehouse. It has to be monitored to see that it doesn't go bad in the warehouse. Those are we shall look at that later also. Then also the second point is the supplier performance management. After the procurement process, the inventory is delivered, we shall evaluate the supplier. How has it performed? We shall evaluate his performance, which is also a function of the procurement. We evaluate the supplier. Then compliance and the risk management and continuity with improvement. After the evaluation, which is the supply performance management, after that, the appraisal, what we get from there will help us to manage the next risks that may come. If the procurement is around the same activity, then how do we improve the next procurement activity? Let's go to the procurement principles. The principles of procurement, which is now the backbone of this topic, fairness. There must be fairness. This is in the supplier selection process. Suppliers must be evaluated fairly. Everyone must be given an equal opportunity to compete. Transparency. When evaluation is finished, the successful supplier must be published openly so that everyone must see, and they give reasons why the winner won and why the loser lost the competition. Then there's competition, which means we have to allow suppliers to compete freely. Efficiency, there must be time efficiency. In other words, we have to see that the procurement process must be efficient enough. Sorry about that. The procurement must be efficient enough to give us what exactly we expected. Effectiveness, it must be effective enough to the budget that is set. Integrity, there must be integrity in the procurement process in a way that they must not be fraud, they must not be colliding or conflict of interest, whereby suppliers are provided prices, or the procurement department collides with suppliers to provide them with information they need. So the procurement department must have integrity, in other words. Then accountability, the procurement process must be accountable in a way that they must be able to account for every activity they have done, and it's according to the budget that is required. When we talk of sustainability, which is the last point under principles of procurement, the procurement process must be in a sustainable manner, in a way that when we talk of sustainable procurement, in a way that we must ensure green procurement. Every procurement process must ensure that the environment is protected. So, dear students, for the first point or this first topic, I will stop there. So when I go back to summarize this, we have looked at a number of active points here. We have looked at the procurement definition and we compared it to purchasing. We look at what exactly do we procure. We looked at the objectives of procurement and we looked at the functions of a procurement department. Then lastly, we looked at the principles of procurement. So thank you so much, and I beg to end there for today. Thank you.